It was the year 1860. Abraham Lincoln has just been named the President of the United States of America. Southern states are not pleased, and 11 Southern states secede from the Union. They form the Confederate States of America, led by their own president, Jefferson Davis. And a war breaks out in South Carolina. Our story begins 2 years earlier. 25-year-old Tobias McIvy could feel the impending Civil War. He sold his land in southern Georgia and took his wife Emma and young baby Zach into the eastern scrub of Florida in hopes of avoiding the war. This was very hard on the family. With only the wagon and 2 oxen, Tobias built a homestead. By the grace of God, the family was surviving. One day, Tobias met 3 important people, although he did not realize it at the time. He was chopping wood for fence rails when 3 Indians, 2 men and 1 woman appeared. The Indians were Seminole Indians. Tobias was surprised to see Indians because he had heard stories of the Indian Wars. The Indian Wars in Florida occurred when white settlers began moving to Florida. The Indians tried to fight to stay, but were unsuccessful. The Indians were forced to move to Indian territories west of the Mississippi River. The 3 Indians, Keith Tiger, Bird Jumper, and Lily, explained that they were running away from white men, chasing them for eating an unmarked cow. When the men found them, Tobias protected the Indians and scared the white men away. The Indians were so thankful to Tobias and Emma because they fed them and sheltered them for the night after saving them. The war continued and started affecting Florida, just like Tobias feared. Tobias was recruited to chop wood for the army and had to leave Emma and Zach alone for a while. When he finally returned home, the entire homestead had been burnt. Tobias took his family further south for safety. This time, they built a new homestead near the Kissimmee River in central Florida. There they remained safely until the Civil War ended. Tobias and Zach were trying everything they could think of to capture wild cattle to start a herd. One day, years after he had first met them, Tobias encountered the 3 Indians. They remembered the McIvy family's kindness and returned the favor. The Indians provided Tobias with instructions, a horse, and 2 dogs so that he could start the cattle herd he had been trying to start. When the Civil War ended, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation that freed all of the remaining slaves in the South. One of these slaves, Skillet, wandered free but was tortured and chased by a terrible anti-black group called the Ku Klux Klan. Scared, Skillet traveled south. He came upon Tobias in the woods, who showed him kindness and fed him a meal. After talking with Skillet, Tobias and Emma asked him to stay with them in return for helping with their small cattle herd. With Skillet's help, the family grew the herd to 148 cows. They set the herd off on their first cattle drive with no idea what they would face. They only knew that if they could get the herd to Punta Rusa on the Gulf Coast, they could sell all of the cows. What hardships do you think the McIvy family will face on their way to Punta Rusa? Will they even make it there? And if they do make it there, what will they find? You'll have to read A Land Remembered by Patrick Smith to find out what happened.